Welcome, guys, to our most recent podcast. This is not one of our normal ones we do on the weekends. We've got some special guests in with us today. We've got the guys, Rob and Mark from LooseHeadz. And I'm basically going to hand it straight over to the guys for them to just tell us all a bit about who they are and what they do. So go ahead, guys.
Very kind introduction. We're not special like you said. Hello, I'm Rob. 1/3 of LooseHeadz, sort of in charge of the ambassadorial duties and the social content. So yeah.
Cool.
And I'm Mark. We're missing our third part of our trio, which is Dave, whose wife is due to give birth tomorrow, I think.
Oh, wow. Today, and hasn't.
He's got a whole pass. He's got a whole pass.
Yeah, I think she's been given a bit of a hard time. When he listens back to this, he can see what he does. But yeah, I'm Mark. I'm the elder statesman of the trio. But the success or otherwise of LooseHeadz is all down to the hard work that Rob and Dave do. Really, it was an idea we had, probably going back 3 years. I'd decided that I was going to retire from the game of rugby that had given me everything. I'd been playing since I can ever remember. I decided in my 50th year that I'd get myself reasonably fit, having dodged a load of injuries, and just play with my mates and have one last hurrah, which was fantastic. And I ticked the box of playing with my son. I ticked the box of not getting hugely injured again. And it was after that match that I looked on our first team pitch in my local club, and instead of being filled with the emotions of playing rugby over those years, I was filled with the emotions of meeting several men, probably 20 to 30 in number, who'd really struggled with their anxiety and depression, something maybe a bit worse as well. And that was the germ to go and me to force the arm up the back of Rob and Dave and say, instead of this just being a drunken conversation in a rugby club bar that fizzles out, let's actually do something about it. And that's kind of where we came from.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like an amazing thing you're doing. So, like, in essence, what is it that you're actually doing when it comes to like the actual improving mental health around with rugby?
Well, I mean, I played rugby forever. I grew up in a town called Widnes, where if you don't play rugby, you're considered suspect. I was thrown a high ball aged probably 8 or 9 at primary school. All the primary schools played rugby league, so that's what you did. And that meandering 40 years later, rugby is part of my life. I met my wife playing rugby. Wherever I've moved in the country, I've joined a rugby club and instantly got 40 mates. And I've taken it so much for granted, it's untrue. But I just know that Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, copy, repeat for 40 years has looked after my mental well-being enormously. And it's only when I've retired from the game, I'm still heavily involved at my local rugby club, and I'm a big fan, have I connected the dots that actually the bits of my life when maybe things weren't going so well at work or relationships, rugby was the constant. So armed with that gave us the ability to say, well, we know what rugby is. And LooseHeadz to us has always been a duality between that rugby club community and our desire to help those people where they've been afflicted by mental health. It's not a discriminatory disease. It comes and attacks anybody at any time. We're quite well qualified in the rugby section. Some might say we're not, but we sort of think we are. But in mental health, we have to tread carefully. So we've partnered up with 2 or 3 professional organisations. One being a company called Team Mental Health, who are 2 clinical psychologists who help us understand, help us with the right tone of voice, and make sure that we don't make anything worse, but we try and help.
Awesome.
Yeah, amazing stuff, to be fair. It was
I I think.
So is it an actual rugby club that you have then, or is it like a team?
Well, so I've played for the last 25 years at a club just south of Manchester in Wilmslow. It was one of the clubs. I don't know if it's a proud boast or a stupid boast, but it's one of the 7 clubs that I've been a member of. Having moved from Widnes to Manchester to go to university, then down to London and back up to near Manchester. And every single club's the same, I think. You know, if you're Upper Wallop third team, or you're in South Wales or North Wales or Scotland or Ireland, and I've been abroad and seen the same thing, the same community exists. And there's a language of rugby, which I think is unique to rugby. You know, I had the fortune for my son to play junior football, and football is dominated by you meet in a car park with your kit on, you go and play in a mudded field somewhere, and you get back in the car and go home, and there's no clubhouse. So I think that rugby club community, that thing that is a rugby player. You know, you walk into a rugby club with your chest puffed out because you've had a good week, and they'll people knock you down. You walk in with your face on the floor, and they'll pick you up. There's something quite. There's a brotherhood and a sisterhood in there. And my club at Wilmslow, on a Sunday morning, there's 300 plus juniors, all coming down to. You know, they're dropped off by their parents who wear polka dot wellies, and they don't really get it. And they just start. We're passing the baton on to them. And my initial reaction, as I said earlier, was looking at that and thinking, surely we can be more overt to help the people who I know have struggled, instead of it being something where you're lucky if somebody finds out and you try and hide it because you're a bit embarrassed. Let's make the conversation about our mental shortcomings as common as our physical ones.
I get that. For sure.
Your ankle, we're down the physio. Have a bad day at work, it turns into a bad week, a bad month. You start not listening to music, you start skipping training, all that stuff. Nothing to be ashamed of. And I've been there. And if a gnarled old 53-year-old broken-nosed veteran of the game like me can say that, then I hope it can resonate with some younger folk who are going through it and not finding that life's treating them very well.
No, I really like what you said about kind of, we all have physical injuries, and I mean I've had my fair. I used to play rugby years ago, and I had my fair share of injuries, and the first thing I'd do is go and bitch and moan and tell everyone about how bad my knee is or how bad my back is. And it's just what you do. You're open and you're honest about that kind of stuff. But when it comes to mental health, it's a really hard thing to talk about. There's a big stigma behind it. It can be embarrassing. You can be shy to say it. And also it's quite scary as well, you know, when you are having any sort of, you know, issues. But I think that's an amazing thing to do, is just kind of bring it up and make it as you know, like an acceptable thing to speak about and an encouraged thing to speak about, especially in like a rugby club, because, you know, being from a rugby background myself, I know how close you are with everyone. I mean, mainly ripping the piss out of each other, but it's all love and it's all banter at the end of the day. And that's kind of like that what you say about the camaraderie you get in rugby. I've played football, I've done martial arts. There's nothing compared to the kind of camaraderie you get in a rugby team, guys or girls. It's just brilliant, you know. And I think it's kind of the perfect setting for something like this.
We touched on the stigma as well. How has it been regarding your hashtag campaign? So the Tackle the Stigma, how has that been received? How long has it been going for?
Yeah, all the way since the start. So like Mark was saying, so three years ago we sort of got together. We were having a pint watching the Lions tour in 2017, and sort of got together and we started talking about our rugby journeys, and we sort of realised that we'd all had at least one mate that had a bit of a life wobble. And what we realised quite quickly was it was actually more than a life wobble. It was probably a diagnosable mental health issue. We did a bit of research into it, and 1 in 4 people struggle with a mental health issue in the UK each year. So we wanted to do something positive for those mates, other than say, hey, do you want another beer, mate? Which helps, in the short term, but not in the long term. So we gave birth to LooseHeadz, which is now a platform for anyone and everyone to talk openly about mental health and open up the conversation. So, yeah, that tackle the stigma really resonates with that. The tackle, obviously, coming from the rugby side, but tackle the stigma. What we were trying to do is make the conversation a normal one.
Yeah,
cool.
Which is really good.
So it's an online service that you cite, or not service, but it's an online forum. Is that kind of the best way to say it? Where you just kind of log on, you can talk to other people about anything really.
Yeah, we want it to become a platform that anyone and everyone. We gave birth to it, but it's not for us. It's for anyone who wants to use it to talk about mental health and talk about their own struggles. So the website, we've got about July last year, we started selling clothing to fund our foundation that we pump into mental health initiatives. So like you pulled up there.
So yes, you've on page. So you've got you guys down here. Okay, you're seeing about us. So yeah, you've got your shop. So everything you sell goes straight back into the actual organisation, like helping people out.
Yeah, we say it's 3 years ago. What you see there is the manifestation of 3 blokes spending 2 years not doing a great deal because we're blokes. So probably May or so last year, Dave, who's not with us, so we'll talk about him, said to Rob and I, "Look, seriously, fellas, we've got something quite special here, but we're just dicking about. Can we either do something positive with this, or can we just let it wither on the vine?" And that was a kick up the arse that we all needed, to be honest. So we had a website, but we've re-platformed this onto a Shopify site. So LooseHeadz is effectively 2 things. It's a limited company, which is what you see there, unabashedly selling clothing and operating as a commercial enterprise. And what we do is we take the profits that we make from the limited company's activities, and we have an associated but very separate LooseHeadz Foundation, which is a charity. And it's that charity that charity is completely separate from the commercial operation, has 4 trustees that debate where the money that we've donated into it and from other people will be best spent to achieve the ideals of helping people establish better mental fitness strategies. And that's where we've arrived at. Our 3-year learning is that we're not clinical psychologists. We don't, and nor do we want to be, but we're completely aware of this 21st century thing that is mental health. I think, quoting Rob, to say we don't have mental health issues is wrong. Everyone has mental health. We either have mental good health or mental bad health. And the mental bad health is possibly because we haven't got a strategy to dig ourselves out of a hole. And our view is if we can give people the tools to establish their own very personal mental strategy for getting good mental health, then that's treating a need that is out there. And we used to say, and we probably still say, it's quite a long strap line, but if we could save somebody from going to the euphemistic suspension bridge to end it all, then we'd kind of won. But we'd never know if we'd done that, and therefore we just carry on. But we're everything we do in the foundation is sadly, the world we live in, you need a bit of cash, and that's what we exist for, to give that foundation some cash to be able to spend on initiatives that we think serve the ideals of the LooseHeadz movement, which is promote better mental fitness anywhere, young, old, male, female, worldwide.
And how do you find how would you find the response to what you do? Because I know, obviously, looking at your social media, you've grown to I think you're nearly 15,000 on your page. How has the response, I'm assuming, has been overwhelmingly good? Have you actually been given any sort of, say, success stories loosely? Have you been given any sort of feedback from people before?
Yeah, at this point, I must hand it over to Rob, because whenever I go on Instagram, Rob or Dave knows within 30 seconds and tells me to get it. So Rob's the owner of Instagram. So
there's a nice story around that, which we'll come on to in a bit later, I think. The support that we've had has been phenomenal, both from a professional level and a grassroots level. Touching on the ambassador and the professional level first, we've now got 23 ambassadors on board at top level rugby. That's male and female, who really help us to get the message out there. The latest one is Ugo Monya, who he's on the TV every week. So to have someone like that on board, it really is fantastic. And we've got people coming to us now and asking to be ambassadors. So that's a massive name, isn't it? Yeah, and then the grassroots level, we've given birth to our own little tribe. It's called the LooseHeadz Academy, which is about 130 like-minded people who are very passionate about raising awareness for mental health. We've got a WhatsApp group that we talk in quite often, and they're fantastic. They've taken our message and they've spread it far and wide. So to get the support of people like that who are like they're raving fans, it's amazing. Then we've got we've just started up the partnership program as well, which is we would like to partner with as many clubs as possible in the UK. We're partnered at the moment to 30, and we want to signpost in clubs, get in the clubhouse, get some signage up in there, and really start pushing the message around mental health, and obviously the aforementioned signposting as well.
Interestingly, when we got we started 3 years ago, and we look back, and we like any small business, it's a startup business, and we all have day jobs, and those day jobs take up most of our time. So this is a labour of love that's turned into a business. And like any startup, you run up a load of blind alleys, and you wonder what the wisdom was at the time when you thought that blind alley was a good thing to run up. One of the alleys we ran up that was wonderful was we started before we were ready. And Rob, who used to play with Sam James, both Rob and I and Dave are big Sale Sharks fans. But Rob played with Sam, and Sam is.
You just answered the question there. Someone was asking if you're a sales. Not sure I was asking you a sales fan. So there you go.
So we sat with Sam and his the most flatulent dog in the world that he owns, and we talked to him about where we were and what we thought we could do, and it wasn't as joined up as it is now. And Sam, to be fair to him, just sat there and said, I get it. I completely get it. I understand it. Where do you want me? What do you want me to do? Who else do you want me to get involved? So the next time we met with him, which was like a week later, he'd got his then housemate, Mike Haley, who's now playing at Munster. And Mike and Sam and Dave and Rob and I kicked the ball around for probably 3 or 4 months, not really knowing what we were doing. But that didn't deter Sam or Mike. And as Rob says, we're now the other side of that hill where we've got 23 ambassadors, male, female, every club represented virtually in the UK. And that sounds like it was dead easy. It wasn't dead easy at all. And when we really didn't know what we were doing, we just knew that there was something we had to do. And that has made us believe that one of our guiding principles is we will always endeavour to do the right thing. We will always be good Samaritans rather than bad Samaritans. And by doing it, I make no bones about it, that serves my mental health. And therefore, it's a bit of a virtuous circle, which, I talk about my day job. I have a couple of day jobs, but comfortably, LooseHeadz is the best thing I do. Comfortably.
It sounds like it's great. I take it it's been like a work in progress for you then, because I know you've got Sean Edwards, haven't you? Is he classed as the patron then of the foundation side of things? Yeah.
So about? Well, a million years ago, and it's black and white when tries were worth probably 3 points, maybe not even 4. But John and I are the same age. I'm not going to invite the answer to the question. I don't know if I've weathered better than him. But Sean was a bloke. I played rugby with him for probably 3 years. We did a bit of athletics together. I'm from Widnes, he's from Wigan. We shouldn't be mates at all. We should hate each other. But we sort of hit it off. And then 1,000 years later, I go up in 2013 to a Scottish international. Wales playing Scotland. Of course, my wife's Welsh. We finish the match. We get in the car. We drive back down. We're freezing cold. We stop at a service station. And as luck would have it, in walks Sean Edwards, who's back on his way to London, just called in to buy a Mars bar. So I went up to him and said, "All right, Sean, you might, obviously I know you, but you've no idea who I am." And he just looked at me completely blankly and looked through me and said, "Right, okay, so we played together. Where was that then?" "Well, Merseyside and Lancashire and blah, blah, blah." "All right, great to see you," and off. So, of course, I came back licking my wounds with my tail under my arse, thinking, "Oh, dear." And my wife said, "So you never really knew him then?" And 5 minutes
was that your claim to fame?
5 minutes later, he walked back in and he grabbed a chair and he turned it round and he sat down and he said to me, as bold as brass, "Did you stop me taking a kick against Yorkshire?" And, of course, I can remember that. I didn't think he would. And, "Yeah, I did, Sean." And he said, and he was serious, he said, "I'd have got that kick." And that then rekindled a relationship that was built 1,000,000 years ago. So when we set LooseHeadz up, I thought, well, what bigger personality who would frighten people to death could we ask to be the patron of the foundation? And I approached Sean, and a bit like Sam James, he said, "Yeah, I get it. Where do you want me to sign?" And that's kind of a rugby value as well. We have a contest periodically about who's got the straighter or more bent nose, but Sean's a good guy. He's got a lot on his plate, but he's always got time for LooseHeadz, which is brilliant.
So was that when you were? Awesome. So that I'm assuming it's when you were rugby league based then, because obviously he had like a 15-year stint. Was it the Bulls, Bradford Bulls?
He played. Well, I only ever played rugby union with him, so he was.
Right.
He was a gifted 15, 16, 17-year-old. He signed for Wigan to play rugby league on his 17th birthday. In his rugby union days, he captained England's schools, rugby league and rugby union. And to say, I have a few rugby heroes. We've all got rugby heroes. Sean's one of my rugby heroes for very different reasons. I saw him as a very blonde-haired, could do anything, fleet-footed centre. And yet most people see him as a gnarled coach and never really aware that he was a magnificent player. And you wouldn't pick a fight with him.
No, I don't think I would, to be fair, either. Don't think I'd cross him if I could avoid it.
It's quite interesting to say, like, about when he first approached it. It's like the first thing he says is, I could have got that kick. But that's like when it comes to like high performance rugby, mental health issues are they're much more common than you think. I actually the other day I listened to the High Performance podcast that had Johnny Wilkinson on it, just talking about his career and like just talking about the kind of stress you undergo when you perform at that like high level and you have that high performance mindset. And the stress that you can kind of that can come over you during these, like, especially when he was like on the Lions tour and lead up to the World Cup, and with the amount of injuries he had as well. And then you're stressing when you get injured as a professional rugby player. I mean, you're looking at your livelihood there as well. So it's a much more common thing than you'd think. I think like, doing something like this is amazing, just to kind of bring it out to the open a little bit more, because people are starting to speak up a lot more. Like about health, mental health these days, like in every area. But I think rugby's, I think it's just a really good forum for it all, because it's because of the kind of camaraderie side of it, and because of the high level stress you can get when you're playing at that high level. I think it's awesome what you're doing. Awesome.
That
agreed.
That podcast you mentioned, the high performing one. So Damien Hughes is a reasonably good friend of mine. He's a professor.
Oh, okay.
I spoke to him about the Johnny Wilkinson thing, and he said it's quite remarkable when you speak to him. He's very intense, and he was as a player. And he used to. My recollection of Johnny Wilkinson as a player was that if he didn't get 7 out of 7 kicks, if he got 6 out of 7 kicks, he would beat himself up about it. And that whole podcast, that hour and 20 minutes, was just an insight into the Johnny Wilkinson 15 years later. And he's kind of found a bit of inner peace, hasn't he? He's very zen, isn't he? He's very like, he talks about enjoying the experience, enjoying the journey of it, enjoying the failure, rather than that kind of crazy mindset of I have to get every single kick. It was quite interesting when he spoke about taking his, he was at the fun fair with his daughter, and he had to do like a basketball cut. He was talking about going into that mindset, you know, before he takes a kick. It was really, really good. Really interesting podcast.
I'll have to find that.
Yeah, I've got to listen. Need to give it a listen.
No, really, really good. I've actually just kind of got into them. I'm going to listen to a few other ones, but yeah, it's always really interesting to get into the kind of mindset of someone, you know, at such a high level, and you look at as being so strong, you know, and then it turns out they have had these massive mental health issues as well, and it's just part of something that we all have. We all go through it in our lives, and it's so common. So let's chat about it, you know.
Yeah, we found that we've had a few messages, mostly sent through to us on Instagram, which really made us sit up and take notice. They all make us sit up and take notice. But when you have a 13-year-old girl contacting us who's been self-harming, and she says, LooseHeadz is a place where I feel like I belong. That's when you suddenly think, right, all this stuff we were doing, and we have a great time doing LooseHeadz. We do have a great time. We laugh a lot. But when that comes, it brings into sharp focus some of the good we're doing, which is why we want good Samaritans. Passing on the other side of the road is not an option for us now. And as Rob said earlier, if all we've done is given birth to a platform to make people feel safe, where they belong, where they can speak openly, then we've done something good. We've got loads of more plans than that. Going back to that partnership program, we want to establish one person in all of the 1,700 clubs across the country who would be the point of contact. We've struggled a bit with calling them a loosehead, because if you stick your arm up in a rugby club and say I'm a loosehead, you'll end up in the third team playing loosehead. Nobody wants to do that. So, but that we're very, very determined in our own way about making sure that we do that thing we said earlier that you mentioned, Andy, about making the conversation about physical health, which is normal. The same thing with mental health, and we absolutely know in our heart of hearts we'll never quite get there, but that should never stop us trying.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's going to be hard to kind of get. It's going to take time. It's going to be hard to get people to speak about mental health. Some people will be open to it. Some people, you know, it's harder to get through to. But the fact that you kind of do it and getting messages like that just makes it all worthwhile. That's incredible. Like just to help one person, it makes it all worthwhile. You know.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself down the line? Then have you got sort of plans in the pipeline for anything to expand, or are you just kind of working on the foundations that you've set so far?
Yeah, we've been really busy. Probably during lockdown. Lockdown did us a lot of favors, actually, because I think it brought into focus the people who need work as a sort of antidote to some of the problems they've got, and suddenly that's taken away and they're furloughed or they're at home. And we started just when we probably shouldn't have started, but we started doing some podcasts ourselves. And Rob drove that. He got all the ambassadors to say, you know, would you come on and do us half an hour of chat? We did a podcast with Jonathan Davis, the original and best, I would suggest, but he's my sort of era. I had to take Valiant for a week to be able to speak to him. He is my ultimate rugby hero, and it turns out these people are normal guys. Surprise, surprise! Breaking news: they're normal people, and they all want to help. And armed with that, and we've done a lot of stuff where we've started before we're ready, and we have a mantra between the three of us that we will crawl, walk, sprint into anything, and we don't say no to most things. we say yes and we get stuck in and we get our hands dirty and we run up a few blind alleys. But if we crawl, walk, sprint, it's allowed us to realise that with our respective skill set, Rob, with his social media hat on, runs that brilliantly. I still struggle to understand. I have to phone him and say, how do I post? How do I like that without making me look like I like it too much? And he just goes, oh, shut up. But so we focused on that Instagram thing, which is a bit, everyone has a great life on Instagram. That's the way I see it. And their life clearly isn't that great. Can't be. And we want to bring it out as being, it's okay to have a crap day. It's okay to be not okay. And actually, the more we say it to ourselves, the more we start thinking about these. The academy kind of runs itself. They're the raving fans. And I'm deeply humbled by the fact that we've 130 people who buy the stock because they know that if they buy a T-shirt from us, then the profits from that T-shirt will go to help somebody maybe that they know they sit on the bus next to, they work next to, who's maybe struggling a bit, and we can do our initiatives. We've got loads of initiatives we want to fund. 2 or 3 of them will be involved in primary schools, where there's lots of evidence, there's empirical evidence to suggest that if somebody has a mental health issue when they're a young person and they don't get that treated, then they'll take that through to adulthood. And that's depriving people of a life. And I feel quite strongly about that, if all we can do is raise some cash and make that happen, then we blooming well should do. And that's what we'll do. We're driven by the people who call themselves LooseHeadz followers, if I'm honest, as well. We listen, we ask, we hear, and we design our future around what they're telling us. And it, I can't stress too highly. Without Dave and Rob properly working on it as if it were their only full-time job, LooseHeadz would have died and withered away. So if we have saved one person, it's testament to those 2 guys.
So do you accept donations directly then? Because I know obviously the main source of your income, I assume, is obviously the merchandise that you sell, but do you accept, do you have a platform just for people to donate straight into you?
Yeah, we do. We're using GoFundMe at the moment. But equally, if somebody wanted to donate, we're as transparent as it comes. If somebody wanted to donate anything to us, we would gladly accept that, but they'd probably better just getting in touch with us through Instagram.
There's been a few people who have taken part in fundraisers as well for us throughout lockdown, just before lockdown as well. So that's another way of getting involved.
Well, I actually saw, I think if you're still watching, so Ross that's been commenting, that's been popping up, he, if I remember correctly, he took part in your 25 press-ups for 25 days. So was that a fundraising sort of, and was that in part a fundraiser, or was that more just the raising awareness aspect?
It was raising awareness. I think you did it, didn't you, Mark? You tried out the struggling to do the press ups, but raising awareness nonetheless.
One of the things we did do is one of the ambassadors is Brad Shields, who again I can't speak highly enough about these men and women who join our little gang. But Brad approached Rob and said, so Brad Shields, topically talking on a bearded podcast, and I apologise for my pathetic attempt. I've been growing it for 2 weeks, and I just look ill. Brad was characterised by he's got a beard. He used to have a beard, not dissimilar to yours, Andy. A big, well-grown, quite proud of it. And he decided he'd got injured. He'd had a bit of a rough time. His wife said, "You need to pull yourself together." Blah blah blah. So he thought, right, well, I'll change it. I'll get fit and I'll shave my beard off. So instead of just shaving his beard off, he contacted us and said, "I love what you're doing, fellas. Can I shave my beard off for LooseHeadz?"
Oh wow!
And we're
brilliant.
We're sat there thinking, yeah, I suppose so.
This is Brad Shields' beard. It's the first.
He's doing it for us.
Yeah. And he raised, through his efforts and the efforts of all the WAFS team, They booked a box just before lockdown in Spa. We went down. Sky Sports turned up, which gave us a bit of a nosebleed. And
Wow.
Brad raised 3,000 quid. And we're going to use that 3,000 quid to fund part of the primary school wellbeing through sport program at a primary school near where Brad is based. So Brad can be the living embodiment of that. And that's the virtuous circle that we're trying to create. That, sometimes we walk past these opportunities in life and we just say, oh no, that's not for me. I think someone like Brad thought, no, I could shave my beard off in my bathroom. Why don't I just do it for charity? And it was Tom Cruise, who's a great friend of LooseHeadz. Tom tells a brilliant story about when he was 15 and 16 in Wilmslow. His best mate's a guy called Mike Jackson, and he was drinking WKD behind the back of Barclays Bank. And the police came along and said, "Right, what's your names, lads?" "Oh, well, I'm Mike Jackson." "And what's your name?" "Tom Cruise."
Tom Cruise.
Get in the van. But Tom is, when you meet a rugby team like Wasps, high-performing sports team, of that there is little doubt. Suddenly, you start picking out the characters, and Tom is the glue in that changing room, I would suggest. And Tom hosted the whole thing for nothing, for no other reason than he gets rugby, and that is deeply humbling. And the more we can do with that, is the more the better, because it's ace fun. If I'm honest, it's better than working.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Does there come a point where I can't remember if you said for definite, but is this now your sort of full-time job, or are you still juggling it with other stuff?
Yeah, I think we've had that chat increasingly over the last 6 months, where for all the things we want to do, we won't do it justice if 1, 2, or 3 of us don't jump into it part-time and maybe full-time. That just won't happen. I, for my sins, run a financial services company, which I enjoy, but it's quite boring. And I have a couple of internet businesses that I run, which I enjoy. But nothing has really consumed me as much as LooseHeadz does. I don't know how you feel about that, Rob. You're younger than me. I can retire.
I work at Ashton Gate for Bristol Sport. So I work with Bristol City and Bristol Bears and Bristol Flyers. So across 5 different teams, 3 different sports in the commercial department. So working on sport sponsorship and sport activation. So sponsorship activation. So involved in sport, and I really enjoy the rugby aspect of that job. But yeah, I think LooseHeadz is it's the best thing I do.
Yeah,
which is good.
There does come a time when you're doing, I'm doing this. I'm starting a business making beard products, and I also have to work as well. I've always done hospitality, and there comes a time where you have to kind of say, right, I need to do one or the other. And it's got to that stage for me now as well, where I've jumped into this kind of full time. But it's great because it's the thing that I love. It's actually, I've managed bars and nightclubs before, which I used to like when I was younger, but then I just ended up not liking it. And then actually doing this whole beard side of it, it's something I care about. I'm not earning as much money yet, but hopefully I will. But it doesn't matter. Like, it's actually your personal mental health improves so much more when you're doing something that you enjoy. Yeah, I totally get where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So Dave, who's not with us, but again, we'll talk about him and we'll try and be nasty about him. But I've known Dave for probably 5 or 6 years. We played rugby together. Rob's 25, Dave's 30, I'm 53. I'm the odd one out. I don't have a beard. They've both got beards. I can't grow a beard. They both can. But then Dave used to be full-time employee with a digital agency. And there comes a point in anyone's career that, those drives home, your dashboard hold all your secrets, sort of ideas, that Dave was desperate to give it a go on his own. And I was delighted that he approached me to ask me to sort of talk to him about the process. And I've done that myself. I've gone from working for a big company for working for myself, and it's not easy. And you have, where's the money going to come from all the time? It just goes on all the time, and it dominates your thoughts. But you're dead right, Andy. If you do something you love, you'll never work a day again in your life. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So maybe I would love to see. I would love to see LooseHeadz become. We have a duty of care to its followers, and that's always governed our thoughts. That we can think about the commercial side of it and have lots of plans, and we can think about the foundation side. The reality is, it's only as good as the people pressing like and send and order. It's only as good as that. And if we lose sight of that, we'll lose something golden. So, and at the moment, we're writing, it's very obvious to the casual eye. And I get a lot of my mates who sort of casually say, "What's this LooseHeadz thing you're doing?" And then suddenly everything they go on, because algorithms on Facebook just dominate your life. They keep saying, "Oh, I keep seeing your ads." Well, that's because you've Googled it, you fool. But then they're 53. But I sense that, I'd love to be able to think it could be. We don't want to be the single preeminent mental health organisation. That's never been our objective. But our objective is to be somebody with a lot of other people who raises the profile of mental fitness and makes it normal.
Yeah.
And one of the examples that Dave and I and Rob were talking about the other day, I work in LooseHeadz, which is their streets are paved with gold. And I spend a bit of time, Rob always takes the piss, that I'll go in and have a cup of coffee every day in LooseHeadz. It's lovely. But what I witness is there's 10 blokes in every coffee shop tapping furiously into their laptop trying to solve the world's problems, getting nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
What I also see is groups of 5 or 6 women sharing their stories, crying, laughing, supporting each other. And I walk out being one of those aforementioned blokes trying to solve the world's problems on my own, thinking maybe it'd be a good time to just read the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus book, because maybe they've just got. And it's, to me, no surprise that of those 1 in 4 people that Rob mentioned earlier that have a diagnosable mental health problem each year, 75% of them are male. So it's not a male-only problem, but it is a male-dominated space. And I think it's because we think we've got the answers when we know we don't, and we're embarrassed to talk to each other about it. And there's something in that male-female thing. I don't know if I've enough to crack it, but there we are.
It's like it goes back to the saying everyone just says, man the fuck up, man up. And it's like it's different. You don't say go and say woman the fuck up. You say man the fuck up, and it's kind of like it comes down to like pride. I think a lot of it's pride. You got to look the tough guy, especially in sports like physical sports like martial arts or rugby or something like that, where you've got to look strong. And you don't want to show weakness. But then I guess it's down to that conversation and showing just talking about there's a difference between weakness and vulnerability. Vulnerability is actually something that makes you stronger. Show your vulnerability, speak about it, be open about it, start that discussion. It doesn't show weakness. If anything, it actually shows strength.
Absolutely. I've been also sort of taking notice of the surroundings that I have over the last 2 or 3 years, which has come up, whether it's chicken and egg, I don't know. But because I'm doing LooseHeadz, I'm aware of some of the things going on around me. And I'm a big get up early in the morning, go to the gym. So I'm in the gym 5 mornings a week. It's not a proud boast. What I see in there is that correlation. I get it myself, and I don't think anybody who's a gym goer can deny it. I see the correlation between physical exercise and feeling good, because I can leave all my troubles.
100%.
And there's something in that as well. And maybe we're all, none of us have finished articles, and we're all making this up as we go along as human beings. Probably that's true. If we can just get that out into the conversation anywhere. 22-year-old lads having a beer on a Friday night, if only they could. If that could be part of their conversation, look after each other, how's the gym going, blah, 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 talk about that. Suddenly, the 1 or 2 or 3 of them, or the 75% of them who are struggling, can think, it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is quite an attractive character in anyone. But as blokes, we just don't know, I've got to show strength, I've got to be strong. And that probably comes from our childhood without getting too deep. And it's no coincidence to me that the team mental health company we spoke about earlier that we partner with, the 2 clinical psychologists are both female. Funny old thing. And they properly put us in our place.
Yeah, I bet.
I think that's the thing for us. I think Andy will no doubt agree that obviously we've been really in sort of the bearded community for me personally, at least the last 6 months, maybe 7 months, going on 8. And you can see the stigma in and amongst people. Obviously, beards is supposedly a sign of strength or whatever. You get there's a big mantra around the Vikings and that kind of impression. So like you say, I think it's to see people showing weakness is a sign of vulnerability. I think that people they think that people will try and exploit. I imagine it's probably the same in the sort of the rugby atmosphere as well. Showing the weakness will be exploited. But I think it's got to be done. I think that's why you stood out so much when we first obviously spoke to you and said about how we love what you're doing, because I think it needs to be discussed more often. And I think a community like ourselves as well needs to talk about it more often. Yeah. So I think hopefully stuff like this will be a starting point for people to look at and go, actually, yeah, it is okay to have vulnerabilities. It is okay to sometimes not be okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll work.
It's about that education as well. I think it was touched upon before, but I spoke to someone not too long ago, and they said, no, I don't have mental health. I said, no, wait a minute. It's not that you don't have mental health. You have mental health. You might have good mental health, but you still have mental health. Everyone has mental health, just like physical health.
Yeah.
And mental health is the same as physical health. It's like if you go to the gym a lot, you're going to get stronger. If you talk to people and discuss your vulnerabilities and talk about the issues you have, it's like a mental workout. The more you speak about it, the more you talk about it, the stronger you'll get. And it's going back to that kind of physical to mental kind of description of it. The more you talk about it, the more you make it a more open thing. People will literally see it. Discussions around things like that. It's like going to the gym for your brain, And I love what you're saying earlier about just when you go to the gym, when you I honestly believe that physical exercise is the best thing for your mental health. I mean, scientifically, all the endorphins you're releasing, but it just gets out frustrations, but it just makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you've achieved something. You've got like kind of tangible goals you can work to, and it just makes you feel better. Having that feeling of self-improvement. Like if ever I'm feeling down about something, it's so easy to just go, oh no, I'll just sit home. I'll just watch TV. And you're going to feel more crap. If you get off your ass and go for a run or go to the gym, you're going to feel fantastic. You're going to feel amazing. And it's kind of, I've always found a lot of people call it conquering your inner bitch. It's that thing that's stopping you from actually going. As soon as you go and do something, as soon as you start exercising, instantly your mental health has gone from here to here. You feel incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's really good that it's it's discussing this kind of things at training. After a heavy training session where you've just done like hill sprints or something, and then going on and talking about mental health issues, you're going to be so much more open. You're going to feel better as well to discuss it. And I just think it's a really cool kind of hand-in-hand partnership of mental health and rugby. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing.
100%.
Yeah, and we're trying. What I've been completely and utterly amazed by, and I'm a knackered old broken-nosed gibbering fool. I'm an alakadoo at a rugby club. I'm on our committee. I'm the person that they hate and all that stuff. But completely blown away by the very top of the game, the professional game, the blokes that we talk to, and the women to a lesser extent because they're connected to their female counterparts. But the blokes, they are aware that their career is probably 5 to 7 years, maybe 10. So life after professional rugby is a massive come down. And what are they going to do to manage that transition? And that, I think, is an unintended consequence of professional sport. And that's another thing we're trying to think, well, how can we help that? We don't know. We have no idea. But half the way of solving the problem is being aware of what the problem is. The adulation of the crowd on a Saturday, if that goes on for 10 years, you're going to have that drug going through you. And when that drug is completely taken away from you, you're off the WhatsApp group. You're sent out to pass. You've had no other training. All you've done is played on the wing for XYZ professional club. Crikey, that's a recipe for, in football. You've probably got enough money if you played at the very top of the game for not to worry about the financial aspect, which is a major issue. But in rugby, you probably haven't. So that is another thing we're thinking, is that our role to talk about that? And of course it's our role to talk about it. It's not our role to own it, but it is our role to talk about it.
I think that's really important. Because when you've done, it's the same. Because I follow martial arts, so it's the same when you get to that high level. Unless you're at the top, like with rugby and martial arts, it's not like football. Football, they all get paid insane amounts of money. With rugby, unless you're right at that top, at that pinnacle, same with martial arts, you're not going to be driving around in Ferraris and having mansions and stuff like that. You've got to think about life after the sport. And what are your options? If you haven't done any other training, you can go become a TV pundit. You can become a coach. Say you have like an injury or something. What is it you're going to do afterwards? If you're injured and you can't be physical, there's only a small amount of things you can do. So, I guess it's that kind of life after sport.
Yeah, and we've often wondered about rugby is what we eat, breathe, and sleep. Our logo is a pair of posts, for Christ's sake. So we are wedded to rugby. But we've often wondered about the transferability of the LooseHeadz concept, let's call it, into something like cricket. They're rugby, cricket, very similar sports. There's quite high-profile players who've really struggled with their mental health, and they've just said, "I can't go on tour," and they've had a mental breakdown. And maybe what we've done almost accidentally is touched on a nerve. We've jarred a nerve that exists in lots of places. We just know it exists in rugby, but it probably everywhere. We're not blind to that. And again, therefore, why can't we all just make it acceptable to have a chat? And I went in knowing I was coming on this podcast today, knowing I wanted a cup of coffee. I went into giving them a name check, Cafe Nero in Alderley Edge, my favourite coffee shop, and witnessed it all again. There's 5 women, 4 of them are playing bridge, laughing, joking, having a laugh, and then 5 blokes conquering the earth on their laptop. Oh dear.
I think it's really good as well. The whole, we've got a thing, a few things like in the kind of bearded community, like a few different groups. Like it's like support groups of guys that have beards that get together and they help to do charity stuff like that. There's one called the Bearded Villains. There's the Bearded Rebellion. It's basically just groups of guys that get together and they take care of each other. They help each other out, and they also do charity work for other different causes. But I think something like LooseHeadz is so good because it's something like that in a niche area, rugby or like beards, like for you guys, rugby, that just brings people together and discusses openly, mental health. And I was actually going to ask you about going into other sports. I think it's a really good, a great idea, not just other sports, but just other areas in general. It's something you could kind of apply to anything. But it's important that everyone has that thing in common, that they can kind of use as like a kind of icebreaker, as a kind of format of discussion of what you can do next with it. But no, I think it's awesome, guys, what you're doing. I'm really excited to see what's coming next from you guys. It sounds like you've got it. You've come a long journey already, and just by looking and hearing your stories, it sounds like you're really going somewhere with this. It sounds really, really cool. And
definitely on the right path.
Yeah. We're probably going to wrap it up in a second. Is there any other social medias you have? Is it just Instagram? Is there anything else you want to shout out, give a plug to? Anything you want to announce to people? We'll bang it all up on it will be on our YouTube channel. We'll send it over to you as well, so you guys can stick it on yours or your Instagram and stuff as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure, guys.
Yes, lovely meeting you all. Hopefully we can do something again in the future, something like this.
I'll keep growing.
That's the challenge that you'll have to have now.
I'll tell you what, I've got my products coming out in November. I'll send you some stuff to help you grow it. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Is there anything you want to plug out? So you've got your Instagram, which is at LooseHeadz with a Z at the end.
Yeah,
You've got your website.
Because we're quite cool. We've got a Z on the end.
Oh,
so.
yeah. We've got to change the name a little bit for it to be cool. Those are the rules.
Yeah, no, we're LooseHeadz with a Z on all social platforms. Head over to our website, www.looseheadz.co.uk. Check out the gear, buy some stash, and help us pump some more money into mental health initiatives.
It is quality gear as well. I must add, I've lived in this hoodie since I bought it, so I'll be definitely buying something else at some point.
Looking at your website, your stuff looks great. I mean, what you're doing, guys, is incredible. And we'd love to kind of help you out with whatever you kind of need from us, whatever we can do to help you out, give us extra exposure. And yeah, just carry on doing what you're doing. It's bloody awesome. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. That's really means the world to us. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you check out LooseHeadz. Keep an eye on them, and hopefully we'll be back in the future to talk to them again. So for now, stay safe, stay bearded, and peace out.
Peace out.
There we go.